Hey everyone, welcome back to CryptoCache. Thank you so much for joining me here. I hope you're having a fantastic day. We're going to take a look here at Voyager token, kind of see what's going on at VGX and help understand best practice, big picture. It's up like 80 something odd percent on the day. So definitely the only coin that's really doing that, but it's had a tendency of doing this before and retracing. So I just want to make sure we kind of cover that and hopefully, just identify some potential areas of opportunity. Now, if you're new to the channel, I'm not a financial advisor, please understand that. I love teaching people to trade, however, so if you want to learn something new and just become a better trader, more consistent, I have a trading academy where I teach you how to trade, community and signal group, all in the description below. Basically CryptoCache.tech as a website. Check that out in your own time. I do offer discounts for military and third world countries. Feel free to message me, just only use the contact information down below. I'll never direct message you, at least initially. I'll respond to you, but I won't direct message you. All right, so here's what's going on with VGX. So first and foremost, we got basically this lowest point here, which is right around 14.6 cents. So we could just say 14, round up maybe 15 cents is effectively the lowest point which we saw the price action. More recently, the lowest point which we saw the price was about 25 cents. So what we want to do is go ahead and grab the Fibonacci and kind of see roughly where that lines up here, and then of course kind of see if there's any key level supports or resistances. Now, when it comes to something like this, it's been declining for some time, right? Ever since November, it's been on a decline. Of course, Bitcoin's very similar, but it took a while to find its bottom. It does look like it has found its bottom, considering we have a higher low now at this point, right? So we got a higher low here. That is positive, because again, it's a shift in dynamic. I mean, it's not an amazing thing, don't get me wrong, but when you can identify a higher low, that's an important step in the right direction, okay? Because it kind of tells you that the trend is effectively, I wouldn't say reversing, but it's no longer continuously making lower highs, right? Because again, this candlestick hasn't closed yet, but you can see it's higher than this most recent one here, therefore kind of giving us a higher low, and of course, a higher high, right? So kind of got some good stuff there in that sense. Let's look at the standard indicators too and see if there's anything else we can identify. Extremely overextended by all means. We see this happen a lot. But the difference is with last time, it didn't come up over 70 and now it has, right? So what that does in some cases is this unique phenomenon in cryptocurrency I've noticed is that when you pass 70 on the RSI, specifically on the daily, then a lot of times that will work as a support level, okay? So hypothetically, the price comes back down, it'll kind of maybe potentially bounce and stay above for a little while. It truly never stays above or below for just a short amount of time. Once it breaks, it stays there, okay? So hypothetically, that basically implies it has good momentum, and we should actually experience the price action either going sideways, potentially down, but not tremendously further. In other words, shorting this may not be advantageous, at least just from a bird's eye view for now, from what I can tell, even though it has a history of retracing and coming back down at least 60-70% of its original starting point on its at the beginning of the day, we have a little bit different scenario here, okay? So again, just some friendly advice there. I'm not saying it's going to continue to blast off to the moon, but there's probably likely a fundamental catalyst pushing the price action up. But from a technical standpoint, we can expect the price action to, in most cases, decrease based on the simple fact that it's overextended, right? But again, we got some supports. There's a small handful of things here kind of conflicting the information, so to speak, on the daily, all right? So again, I wouldn't say there's any sound determinations you can make based on just the daily alone, which is why we look at other things as well. So we're looking at the moving averages here, and take a quick look at the daily. Yeah, we're well above the 50 and the 20, but the 200's trailing way up here about $1. So technically that is a resistance level that you could want to consider, but we're a little premature, a little early in that sense. I'm not saying it's going to hit that, but if it were to come up to that area, we'll probably see some resistance in the dollar range. Looking at the 4 hour though, here's something we want to take a look at, and this is just TD sequential. We're at an 8 right now, and again, there's no guarantees on this either, but it has a tendency of being fairly consistent. Again, there's random times where it just doesn't even matter based on volatility and volume, but in this case here, we can kind of see we're at an 8 right now, and hypothetically a 9 is the stopping point. So I would not be surprised if the price action gets rejected again if it comes up to about 75 cents and then kind of retraces and consolidates, potentially even decreases in value. Now, we don't have any strong support levels here based on previous data, so truthfully, it's hard to say specifically how much lower it could go. But oftentimes when you have a significant increase that is well outside the means of just standard deviation, for example, it's very common for the price action to come down to like the halfway point. So 0.5, coincidentally right here at about 50 cents, is essentially right where it could very well be. The price might come down that low. Again, worst case scenario. I'm just giving you a kind of statistics on traditional charts, and for the most part, that will inevitably see a halfway point or lower if it's going to retrace. Now, here's the interesting thing about this, though, is that even though we're eight 4-hour candlesticks into this, almost a full day and a half worth of trading, we can see this significant candlestick here with a major wick to the downside and to the upside, right? So it's essentially considered a doji candle, because even though it's a little higher than the center, it is still very much a doji candle. And that kind of tells us that with this continuing higher, the decision wasn't to come back down. The decision was to continue to go up, and there's a lot more buying pressure and no selling pressure, really, at least very little, right? If we take a look at the volume, here's a positive thing as well. The volume has continued to increase. All right. So as long as the volume can continue to maintain itself, we should be in good shape to be able to allow for the price action to stay where it's at. It's when the volume comes, starts looking like this is when you want to have, you want to hightail it out of there, because then there's going to be a lot of selling pressure, and oftentimes the price turns around. But for right now, again, depending on your overall position size and what you're doing, it's not a terrible consideration to kind of leave it, but I would also recommend taking some profits while you still can if you had gotten in somewhere in the 27 range, because again, this is Voyager, right? It's associated with Voyager, and we all know what happened with it. So please just make sure that you understand that there's a lot of risk involved in holding a position with this, especially based on its history. All right, and it has a history of shooting up and coming back down in almost the same trading day. So again, just something to think about. But as far as a technical aspect of things, because those are likely fundamental catalysts that push the price back down, the TA is looking pretty good here. It's not extremely overextended. While yes, we do have an overextension here, it did consolidate for a good 5 or 6 hours before it legged up again, and it's getting rejected here at again that 75-cent range. So we should likely see the price action range bound between 64 and 75, or possibly the next leg down to about the 50 to 55-cent range. Again, no guarantees on that, but you can kind of see how the price action bounced off these key level supports, and it continued up to test resistance levels. So now that it's retested this level here at about 64 cents multiple times, it seems more likely to stay above. It looks like it just wants to kind of stay there. So again, fairly decent content there as far as sequence of numbers is concerned. But if you also look at the Ichimoku cloud, you can see here lagging span is intersecting. No, correction. Lagging span is far from intersecting with the price action, and that's a fantastic thing. Conversion lines above the baseline were well above the cloud. So there's really no reason here to go ahead and close your position until the lagging span intersects with the price action. It could do one of those. It could come down here. That's a case in point where you'd want to consider trimming or closing your position. Same thing with the conversion line, basically telling us that we're losing momentum. If that comes back down and intersects, that is essentially something that you want to pay attention to as well. You can see it kind of came close here, but it just continued higher. But the lagging span was still free and clear, so it wouldn't have been, you want to usually have both of those things happening at the same time in order to want to close your position. So really at this point, based on the technical standpoint alone, no fundamentals whatsoever, the TA looks pretty good on the short and the midterm. The daily, I'm slightly concerned with the fact that we could very well see the price action get rejected like we've seen before, where it goes too far outside of a standard deviation. In fact, why don't we take a quick peek at that and see? We are actually well within the boundaries. We are not overextended by any stretch. A lot of times you can see the standard deviation of the price action going too far or too close to those areas. And it looks like even though it has overextended itself a little bit each time, it corrects itself naturally and then comes down to bounce off key level supports. So all in all, pretty good stuff here. Big picture, one last thing here too as well. Again, this is strictly hypothetical, but I get this question a lot. Where's it going to go if it continues? Well, if the price action were to continue up, best case scenario would be $1.23. Okay, and that's an extremely best case scenario. That's essentially doubling where it's at presently. All right, so in that sense, I would say that's less likely of a reality. What's more likely is for the price to continue to be range bound between 64 and 75, and possibly, of course, in the 50 to 55 cent range. Okay, but I would expect the price to go sideways and or down, just generally, because that is typically how retracements work, and that is why Fibonacci is such a powerful tool. Because if you take a look at this previous pattern here, you can see the price action shot all the way up, came down, rejected at 0.5, and continued to stay right in the 3.32 as well as 0.236 area. So again, just something to kind of throw out there as far as the what normally should happen. But keep this in mind, the smaller time frames are telling us that we are in pretty good shape, and it's a very healthy continuation. Okay, so I like the look of that. The macro looks okay, but the micro looks pretty good, if that makes any sense. All right, well, thanks again for joining me here. Hopefully you learned something here today, of course. If you did, comment below, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you want to become a better trader, CryptoCache.tech is a website, link in the description below. Once again, I do offer a trading academy, community signal group, and I do offer also discounts for third world countries and military alike. Thank you so much for your service. We'll see you on the next one. Have a great rest of your day.